Now, this leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is you said you're a capitalist, right?
Yes.
You have a music career, you have a merch line, you have a podcast. Don't you provide merch for other people? You do your own merch in-house?
Yes. Yes.
So, brother, you Jamaican out here. You got 5, 6, 7 different hustles.
Yeah. and you,
you're a capitalist. You said it yourself. Both of you guys are capitalists. Both of you guys are entrepreneurial. My theory goes like this: when we overemphasize and make everything about the ministry, we lose sight of we have to build out the ministry with good business practices. You said capitalism. I like to say ethical wealth building, which to your
that's
point.
What I am. I like that. I'm not a capitalist. I'm that.
Yeah, right. And so like, and I've shared some of the stuff with you privately of some of the people we've been able to see God bless through our community here, and seeing multiple people level up and start to make money, right? So I'm with you 100%. But do you think when it comes to this ministry versus industry conversation, to me, it's the wrong conversation. To me, it's actually an unhealthy conversation, because the truth is, if you're a Christian and you're building a good business, the byproduct of that will be amazing ministry and the gospel being spread. Maybe literally and directly, like you get to preach through your platform, whether it's your podcast, you guys unpack biblical truth, whether it's you're at a show, or by proxy, which is what you kind of do through your merch line, right? Like, I don't think anybody's looking at a HGA Native Supply shirt and is like, oh, I got saved, I came to the Lord, man. I mean, maybe I can use anything, right? But it looks more like the Chick-fil-A model, right? It looks more like the Chick-fil-A model, where people are experiencing commerce. The people who work there have economic opportunity. They're hearing the gospel, experiencing parts of the gospel, and then they go on, and those that want it can have leadership training and get built up and all that kind of stuff, right? So it kind of becomes that model. So isn't the answer, money doesn't solve all of our problems, but money solves all of our money problems, right? Ecclesiastes says, money answers all questions, according to Solomon in Ecclesiastes. Isn't the answer not to say money's bad and the flesh is bad and the world is bad, but isn't the answer, hey, we need to empower people to build wealth ethically, so if there's less people that are struggling as rappers, as ministers, there's going to be less strain on marriages. We can lower the divorce rate. People are going to be less likely to argue because they're not making any money, but they're going out and you guys know this, like, we know these guys. They go out every weekend, they minister the gospel, they need a stage and a microphone, they need a green room, but it's like, fam, you don't, like, if it's about ministry, you don't need to rap to minister, right? But it's okay to minister through rap. And I think that, and this isn't Christian rapper, Christian, I don't care.
Sure,
My objective in life is to contextualize the gospel to people who are far from God, and to create economic opportunity for my loved ones and other people that I believe in. I think it's the wrong discussion, and I really want to hear from you guys, because I feel like y'all are both entrepreneurial, and KB, you're one of the most entrepreneurial people in this space, but people see you and think you're KB the pastor all the time. But I know how shrewd you are when it comes to this business. I know that you out here getting the bag. I know you out here putting other people on. I know you helping other people get the bag. Like I see, you know what I'm saying? So like talk to that. And again, it's not ministry versus industry, because I just think that's like a completely goofy discussion, period. I think it's like, yo, are our priorities off, and are we trying to come off pious by saying, oh, it's for the Lord, it's for the gospel? It's like, yeah, fam, and it's for my family. Like, my kids eat off of this. I'm trying to buy a house off of this. Like, I'm trying to put other people onto this. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that. I know I just said a whole lot. Me and you both have these, like, streams of consciousness, and then it kind of leads into a question.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I'll piggyback off you. So for us, we try to live off of basically these three mantras that we're constantly having redirect our path. So this came out of the Wesleyan tradition. So make as much money as you can. Save as much.
No, he didn't. No, you said what? Hold on. You said what? You said make as much money as you can. Oh, goodness.
Make as much money as you can. Save as much money as you can. and give as much money as you can. Okay.
Right, yeah.
And the idea is if you focus on any one of those and make it central, then your relationship with money begins to unravel and fall apart, and it becomes to control you. But money is, and I'm using the word money, but what I mean by money is just fruitfulness. I mean, you should try to be as fruitful as you can. Remember that Adam was put in the garden not as a pastor or a priest, but as a farmer. He was put there to work a regular job because the institution the institution that preceded every other institution was his working the ground with his hand, laboring. And then from that labor, it would have been unacceptable for Adam to do a bad job in the garden. So him to forsake his duties as a gardener and making sure that weeds are out of the way and that things are in place and organized, to not do that would be unfaithful. But his job, listen what God says to him, be fruitful and multiply, meaning do a lot more of this and do it well. So the idea, obviously that was in the context of family, but it extends to his very being, that we are to be fruitful multipliers. This is a concept throughout the Bible. This is what Proverbs talk about. The diligent hand multiplies, make it rich. You think about Ecclesiastics, about spreading your seeds wide. You think about the parable of the talents, which wasn't about entrepreneurship, but it still is a principle there that God faithfulness is about taking what you've gotten and being stewarding it is to be fruitful with it. And what you find is if you're not working and being fruitful, then you're not actually fully realizing the sort of function of the image of God on your life, because that's a part of what it means to be made in the image. It's a functional thing. You're here to work and to cultivate and to push back. So anyways, that's more of a theological perspective. But I think that it's important for us to understand that it is very biblical when dudes like Martin Luther said that there is these pastors over here that are preaching sermons and you got to do this sweeping the street. There is no difference between the two in heaven. Because what the guy in the street is doing is sweeping God's road, then the guy in the pulpit is preaching the gospel to God's people, but it doesn't matter. They're both working for their God. Right. They're literally all in God's world with God's roles reporting to the Lord. So whether you work, I hate to use slavery. I'm not going to use slavery as an analogy, even though I could. Even though I could, because Paul does. But you answer your master, no matter where you are. And I think that if you're working at Publix and you're packing groceries, you see that what you're doing is worship. As you are giving, God says he's a provider. How does he provide? Through baggers putting food into grocery bags and taking them out to the car, so on and so forth. All these things are merged into the Christian reality. It's, as Martin Luther calls, the hidden face of God, that God is present in the mundane stewardship. Right. And stewardship, if done well, is going to try to be as fruitful as possible. Now, going back to what I said about the 3 tiers, making as much money as you can doesn't mean that you're keeping as much money as you can. And that's where the other part comes in. That's when it gets ethical. Yeah. So if you start a company, are you robbing your employers of every single dime you possibly can? If things start to go sideways and you could make, I don't know, 10 grand less.
Sounding Marxist.
Sound like a socialist.
We get into that next. Keep going, because this is good.
This is why I call it redemptive capitalism, because I truly believe that it is better for all of us to suffer a little than for anybody to suffer a lot. Yeah. And I think about that. I think when bonuses are being meted out, I think about that as the owner. If I did good that year, we did amazing this year. Do I have to pocket all the surplus? Right. You know, if I, and then loving your neighbor as yourself, which is a function of here, what would I want to happen if I knew that the owner could do this to affect me? What would I want to happen there? I'm not saying that there's a one-size-fits-all sort of response, but the fact of the matter is you bring your Christian conviction into industry
and capitalism,
right?
Because I think that a lot of people, again, I think a lot of Christians have even adopted the concept of just being ruthless capitalists. Right. That we do keep all of the surplus,
right?
And I think that, again, your business practices have to be guided by God's ethical heart, and it has to be guided by loving your neighbor as you love yourself. So you have to ask yourself, like you said, what would I want done for me if I was the worker? What kind of conditions would I want to be in? What kind of conditions do I want to be in as a worker? What kind of things would I expect the company to do for me? Like, if I'm a worker and we have done great this year, not only have we done great this year and there's bonuses, do I, as the owner, pocket the surplus when the reason that we did great this year was because of what the workers did?
Right. Well, you sound like a straight Marxist.
They can
but
say
it's biblical.
But it's biblical. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you have to. I think that. But we've learned capitalism not with a biblical ethic. We've learned ruthless capitalism. And I think that's this laissez-faire capitalism that doesn't have any restrictions, especially ethical restrictions. So I think for Christians, it looks much different.
That's right.
But I also think that you're right about industry. I mean, we don't talk a lot of the things that people love to talk about theology. They love to talk about Reformation. They don't talk about the Protestant work ethic that came out of stuff like that talked about
John Calvin, all my reformers, is called the father of capitalism.
Yeah, people and
the theologian.
Yeah, you can look at that and stuff that Max.
Wow, never knew that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people. There's scholars that would say that it was because of Calvinism and stuff that they kind of built capitalism and all that. It's a whole nother story. But I think that industry, like you said, is important. One of the things that we got to recognize is, first of all, the reason that we even had the things that we had with Christian hip hop was because people were involved in industry.
Right.
And I think we can't ignore that. It can't just be all ministry and no industry. There's absolutely industry. You would not have a Christian hip hop industry if there's no industry.
Like right now, like the cameras that are recording us right now, and the websites that are hosting your video and stuff, like somebody's got to work.
Somebody has to.
Like somebody's got to think about how to do industry, or we can't do the ministry part.
And even when you think about people that do things off of somebody else's dime, the dime is still gotten by somebody. Somebody worked for that dime.
Facts.
So it's the way that God set the world up.
Right.
God set the world up to be industrious. There's no way around that. So Christian can't create this bubble where it's just about ministry and industry doesn't touch ministry, and then ministry doesn't touch industry. It's the way that God designed the world to work. And so I think that both of them are extremely important, man.
Go look up Two Kingdom Theology from Martin Luther. Let it bless your soul.